All right, so good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome. So this is lesson 7.6 about transformations of functions. So if you watched 7.5, and this is a newer video for this year of 2020, because the other ones were older, this is a newer version of it, and I want to make sure you guys copy this down. It's basically taking what we did in 7.5 and transforming the idea and moving things around. So what we're going to do is we're going to get started. Please make sure as we go through this that you guys have Desmos open, and that way when we get to the functions and the calculations you guys will be fine. One of the big things we're going to talk about today is identifying the effects of graphs, especially of exponents, and then talking about what the K letter means in terms of when we're graphing this. It's a translation. I don't have this on your notes, but if you go to 7.6 in your books at home, you'll be able to see the transformations, and we're going to talk about it quite a bit here. Before we begin with this section of the lesson, I do want you guys to go into Desmos and load it up. And in particular, I want you guys to make sure you have this formula set up. So go ahead and you would put y equals AB in parentheses x minus h plus k. And then when you do that, there's going to be an option that says sliders, and you want to hit all, and then you'll get all these sliders set up. And then set these sliders up to 1, 1, 0, and 0. And then go ahead and put 2 to the power of x at the bottom. Pause the video and do it now. All right, once you have this set up, guys, this is kind of the precursor. So mine is the red line, and this is set to 1-to-1 scale. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I was going to zoom in a little bit, but I zoomed out just a touch. So you guys make sure this grid pattern lines up. So what you're focusing on today is I want to make sure you guys know on your notes, if you don't have them in class, if you didn't get them in class, then hopefully you'll get them come get them from me. I don't have my notes on Canvas this year. Sorry about that. I have a lot of other things going on, so I try to get them on, but just make sure you come see me, okay? So it's AB is the formula, and then it's x minus h, and then it's plus k. That's what we put in Desmos, okay? And with this formula comes this following setup. I want you guys to write down A, B, H, K, and put it for everything. Okay, so over here, all of these. So while I'm doing it, you do it as well. All right, so what we're trying to do is identify letters. As we go through formulas this year, we're going to start hitting some harder formulas. I got to make sure you guys identify. So what I mean by that is we can identify what the B is. The 2 and the B line up because of the X right here. Okay, so we know that 2 represents the number B. So B would be 2. And then we have to ask ourselves, well, what about A in front of it? There is nothing here. But remember, you can't multiply any number by 0. So in this case, it is actually a 1. H would be anything after X. We don't have anything here, so in this case it would be 0, because if you put a 1 here, it'd be x minus 1 or x plus 1. So 0 basically means that there's nothing there. And then our k value lines up with this equation right here, so k is minus 4. So you put in here -4. Now what you do is I want you to go on to Desmos, and that's work these sliders. So what you guys want to do is, and I'm not sure if I'm in the camera shot or not on this, is understand the variables here on the left, that we have A is 1, my B is supposed to be 2. So let me change that, and you guys can see the red graph line up when I go to 2, that it's on top of each other. And then H is 0, and then we said K, again, is what? -4. So if K is -4, watch the graph. It does what? It slides down, okay? And it actually goes down 4 units. And what I mean by it goes down 4 units is if you do the y-intersections, you guys would see that this intersection is 0, 1, and it goes down 1, 2, 3, 4 points to 0, -3. So on here, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to write with an arrow. It translates this graph. It doesn't translate, it's not the right word. I want you to put shifts 4 units down, okay, because that's what we just saw. And so what you guys need to know is that the K value, which is always the number on the back side, actually shifts your graphs up and down. Now we're going to deal with the a here. So once again, my a is going to be 1, my b is 2, my h, in this case, one thing you guys need to know is this equation is actually, remember, it's supposed to be written as 2, and then it should be x minus h. Well, ours is actually a plus. So how do you go from a negative to a positive? You would by putting in a negative number. So in reality, this is 2x minus negative 2. And then when you simplify that, you would come out to be 2x plus 3. Whoops, sorry, this would be 3 right here. X minus 3, so negative and a negative would make it a positive, okay? Hopefully you guys understand that and see that. And so the reality is this is not a plus 3, it is a minus 3. And then my k doesn't exist, it is 0. And so what you would do is go into Desmos again, and let's shift it. So I'm gonna go on this formula here, I can find my mouse, return the k back to 0, because that's what it is. But now I've changed the h to negative 3. And you can see as I move it, the graph is going to the left. Now, if I decided in here to basically do the graph itself, and on the top value here, if I put a bracket around this, and then put what it was in the equation, which is plus 2 or plus 3, look what it does. It actually shifts it to the left. And so if I return this back to the original 0 function, you would see, ladies and gentlemen, that the blue is shifted left. So hopefully you guys understand, when you're shifting it to the left, you guys can see that it's actually a negative number, even though it's positive in the answer. Okay, so on this, no, that setup is, this is going to be, so what you would want to do is on your notes, put shifts 3 units left. Okay, and from this predecessor, we're going to finish this off. I'm going to blow through these. If you struggle through this aspect, rewind the video and find out. But based on our knowledge, the k value shifts things up and down vertically, and the h value shifts things horizontally. So that's what we need to know. So here, this would be 1, 5, my h is 0, and my k is 1. And if it's a positive 1, like it's supposed to be, you guys know that this would shift 1 unit up. When in doubt, graph it. Okay, if you want to see it actually move up, change the sliders to these numbers and you will see it move up. Okay, this one is the same way. My a is 1, b is 5, my h now is a negative 7. Remember, it's supposed to be x minus 7. So my h is not a negative number, it's actually going to be a positive 7. Okay, and then my k is 0. And then when you graph that one, you'll get the same predecessor, which means this one here will shift 7 units left, or right, because it's a positive number, sorry. Shift 7 units right, because it is a positive number, okay? If you want to see it on Desmos, you can pop it up here and watch the H. If it goes to the right, you can see it move 7 units. I can't be precise on this slider because the pen will think it's a secondary mouse and it'll pop up and screw it all up. So just do it on your own and see the shift happen, okay? As I'm going positively towards 7, you guys can see I'm moving to the right? Okay, now I want you guys to try the guided practice on your own, which are the next 2 examples. Give me your A, B, H, K, and then give me your A, B, H, K, and tell me what the reflections are. All right, so what you guys need to know is the A here is 1, B is 4, H is 0, and my K is 3, which means this shifts up 3 units. Okay, and this one here is going to be a 1, 4, and then my K is already X minus, which is like it's supposed to be, so this is a positive 5. K is 0, so this shifts right 5 units. If you're struggling with it, back up, try it again. Use the sliders. That's why I wanted this functionality. Now we're going to talk a little bit briefly about write the graph of a function. So my original graph is f of x. It usually always is, which is the blue one. And then how would they get to g of x, which is the secondary equation? Now this part is the same, where it's 1/2 x. But how did they go from here up to here? Well, you went 4 units. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you go 4, it's plus 4. This one over here is g of x again, and it's 3 to the x power. So you're at f of x again, and that goes down to g of x. You went down 1, 2, 3, 4. Hopefully you guys see that delay really quick. All right, now we're going to talk about the compressions of the a value. We aren't going to talk a lot about this aspect of vertical stretching and compressing vertically, because there is a horizontal stretch and a vertical compression. That is more for Algebra 2. I'm not too concerned about that aspect because it'd be more difficult for you guys to understand. But instead, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to talk about reflection over the x-axis and even over the y. So I want to make sure you guys understand that. So the big key is this term right here, the negative term that's associated with the x. When you see that negative term associated in front of the x, what is this graph doing? It's f of x is right here, and what this graph is doing is it's flipping over and going the opposite direction. So it's a reflection over the y-axis, okay? And now this one here, look at this association right here. Okay, we have negative 1/5. The a is negative. When the a is negative, your f of x does what? It now takes and it flips down onto this. So you guys know that when this happens, that your reflection, is over, reflection over x axis. Sorry, I wrote RE wrong. It's reflection over the x-axis. Now, what you guys have to learn as you get farther and advanced in your career here at any school you go to, academically speaking and career speaking, is that you'll see tendencies. And I want to make sure you guys see tendencies and you can put the answer together right away. You'll do this, and when you, or if you're become a mechanic anywhere, anytime you cook anything, anytime you basically do life and you start to do things in a repetitive motion, you will see tendencies that break out that you guys need to be able to identify. And this is one of them. If this is a negative x here, if it's a negative in front of the x, and there's a negative in front of the x, guess what? The reflection is going to be exactly the same. So that means this reflection of this graph is over y axis. And since the negative on the other one here is on the a value, and the negative is on the a value here, you have to know that the reflection is over the x axis. Hopefully you guys understand that concept, okay? When you see the reflections bounce off each other, you'll kind of get this, the guide. And so look at this guided practice real quick and figure it out. All right, last part of the transformations, if you guys go back and look, you can tell me the reflection, if it's a negative in front of the x, that this is over y-axis, and then that this would be over the x-axis, the reflection. I'm not going to write the rest. You guys get the gist. Now we're going to put everything together. All right, so now we have every piece that we're going to be dealing with here, and I told you we would be talking about different values of A. So hopefully you guys see that when it's A, back that up, when it's A, B to the x minus h, that it's also then plus k, and that you can put that and associate with that. So you know the a value here is -3, my b value is 2, my h is going to be, it's a negative, and so it's a negative here, so technically it's a +1, and then my k is 5. And so, ladies and gentlemen, now I want to make sure you understand from this, let's do the bottom one as well, that the a, the b, the h, and the k is going to be the same. So the a value is going to be 0.7. My b value is going to be 2. My h, it's a plus. So if this is plus, remember the only way to get from a negative to a plus is to make that number a -4. and then my k is non-existent, it's 0. So let's use Desmos real quick and figure out this last piece. And so we're going to set our values. So when you guys go into Desmos and you graph it, we are going to, let me reset h to 0 here. 0. Let me change this equation, delete that, go back to 2 of x, and now we have our setup of b to 2. Now we said a is -3, so when I swap to -3, you can see the graph, what it just did, and it dropped down to a negative. So when it's a -3, it's going to be a reflection of reflection, and I spelled reflection slightly wrong, over x axis. Okay, h, what is my h value? All right, if my h value is 1, when I go into Desmos and I watch it and I move the graph to 1, you can see it move to the right. So if I go back to 0 and I move it to 1, look at the graph, it goes to the right. So it goes right 1, and then the k is 5. And when I do k and I bring it up to 5, you can see the graph move what? Up 5. And this is what I challenge my students. Most of you would be smart enough to try to figure out these aspects, okay? That this would be shifting right 1 unit, and then this shifts up 5 units. One of the things that I made sure you guys, we were talking about today in class, is to make sure you guys understood, if some of you went into Desmos or a graphing calculator or anything like that, like I used to have, and you entered it like this, you guys may not know that, you would know that this is the original and this is your secondary equation, but you may not be able to get the reflection aspect, that this is reflected over the x because of how high it is, and then you may not understand that not only is it a reflection, but that you moved it to the right 1 and then you moved it up 5. And if you don't understand that by looking at it, the one cool thing about Desmos is watching it slide back and forth. So when you can move it up and down, slide it left to right, it makes it a lot easier for you guys to understand and see the concepts physically with your eyes. So make sure you're using it. And when in doubt, use Desmos as kind of a tool checker for you, especially when it comes to the homework. And I'll show you one last aspect with the homework before we end. So I'm not going to graph this last one, but I want you to write these down, that when you graph A and it's not a negative, it's a positive, there is no reflection. Okay, it just basically moves the graph, either stretching it or shrinking it. And then h is -4 would move 4 units or shift 4 units left. And then the last thing is k is 0, is no movement up or down. Please make sure you guys understand that concept, okay? That I do want you to make a note so you guys can kind of put the pieces together, especially when you're using your notes and working on the homework tonight. All right, here is the last one. Feel free to do this. All right, if you didn't pause the video to do this, please pause it, try it on your own, and then come back and see if you got the right answer. So the h value here, the a value is actually going to be a -1. My b is 3/4. My h is a -5, and my k is a -4. So if you graph this, this is a reflection. So you would have reflection over x-axis. And then you would be shifting, shift left 5 units, and then you would shift down 4 units. Please make sure you guys can figure this out. Learn how to do the shifting back and forth. And I want to show you one last thing real quick about related to the homework. On the homework, guys, it does talk about graphing. And when I have you graph these points in Desmos, it says graph -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. But remember, there is a shortcut to doing that. In Desmos, put the equation in. So it'd be 2x, 2 to the x power. When you click this setup here, the gear, it's a equation setup, a list setup, edit list is what it's called. You'll see the table bar pop up. Click the table bar, ladies and gentlemen, here are your points. -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. It will help you do the homework faster. It will help you also as we move forward to get to learn how to use this table, because we will use it a lot when we get to quadratics. Please concentrate, work efficiently. I know you guys will do great, and I'll see you soon in class.